So the New York Times has an article that talks about, this is a past article, Russian 2016 influence operation targeted African Americans on social media. That was from last December of last year. Your report talks about the same thing, the specific targeting of African Americans. And so talk a little bit about what you found and what this report brings forward.
The key parts of what our report is talking about, that we're looking at a new age that's called digital voter suppression. This is the way in which we're now looking at not only who we are in terms of being targeted as voters, but how that's being used throughout the election cycle. So Kamala would be a great example of someone who started as early as January, when we started looking at her campaign and looking at her targeted attacks online, to now her being out of the race.
Pushing out negative information about a candidate that's been selected, to be targeted, to turn black voters against them. But it's who they're using as the voice, quote unquote, the digital voice, are supposedly also black people who are spreading that message. And here's what you write about fake accounts that are not necessarily really black people, but who seem to be black people who are saying, hey, Kamala's a cop, or this person is bad for black people. Quote, fake accounts pretending to be black women matter, not only in the disinformation campaigns, but in every election. There has been a constant number, you write, of fake accounts posing as black women since 2013. These fake accounts, which pretend to be black women, seem to be real people with real concerns. They connect with the American black community online, attempting to learn black vernacular and key issue areas. What would be the point of creating fake accounts who appear to be black women specifically?
Because if we know, as we've seen, that the ones who are the most valuable to the Democratic Party is black women. We've seen this. We've even seen it just recently with Elizabeth Warren's campaign. There was an issue where she was basically having Ayanna Pressley speak on her behalf, but it was also about her giving Ayanna Pressley leadership in that moment. And even after her campaign, even after that moment, there was a viral campaign against her, basically saying, well, why should we support her if she's only going to support black women? It was a very interesting change in the dynamic of how it all of a sudden became, well, let's not support black women. Why should we do that? And that's the key to this. The reason that we're supporting black women, or the reason that these accounts are pretending to be black women, is because we already know that the data point says that over 90% of black women will vote for Democrats. And so now we have a whole campaign getting several campaigns, by the way. We have identified at least 5 existing campaigns that are focused on getting black people to do only one thing, not vote for the Democrats.
And can you name one of those 5 campaigns? I mean, we put up from the report that you're saying that there's a conversation about reparations that has to do with it. There's a criminal justice conversation. Yes. There's an immigration. Go on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Reparations, immigration, reparations, immigration, and anything that has to do with the criminal justice system. So the reason that the targeting of Kamala around being a cop is important is because anything that hinges on criminal justice becomes a divisive issue and is being used as a weapon right now. Are there real issues? Absolutely. I want to make sure that people don't dismiss the fact that there are some real issues that we're talking about. I think you had Cory Booker on here talking about police brutality. These are key, important issues to our community. We know that this is the case because in the previous election in 2016, Black Lives Matter was targeted because of their campaign that was focused on police brutality.
Right.
It's still existing. It's still happening right now. It's just that we're not seeing a way to handle this and do a counter narrative.
Very quickly, we're out of time, but how can people tell the difference between the real, genuine thing of Black Lives Matter and the ones that are just designed to make you not vote? How do you even tell?
So you can tell right away by the language that they use most of the time. But if you see anyone who says basically tangibles or you're not getting our vote without us getting something back, you should start to pause and take a better look at what they're saying. Better look at those accounts and seeing what they're saying. And also, don't forget, same rules apply. If these accounts are brand new, you should pause and look at these accounts and see what they're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Shireen Mitchell, thank you very much. And I know the report is coming out this week. Really appreciate you breaking it here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And more Ames after the.
Did you get that? You see, Joy Reid is scared right now, and the reason why is because her pal Kamala Harris got run out of town on a rail. But more importantly, she's admitting what the white media actually knows to be true. Kamala Harris didn't drop out merely because of a lack of money. She dropped out because of the fact that the base of the Democratic Party specifically told her, we're on to you and you ain't getting our vote. And this Shireen Mitchell woman, I've heard of her before. She's got her little scam, Stop Online Violence Against Women. What the hell does that have to do with the black community and black votes? This is nothing more than the same old bedwench black feminut who, as far as she's concerned, if she can get black women to be angry with black men, then she thinks that's going to improve her chances in the dating pool. That's what she's about. But when you hear her and she has Freudian slips every 5 minutes, I want to make sure that people don't understand. And then she goes on, of course, as you just heard, to give the big admission. If you hear anybody talking about tangibles or you can't get our vote unless you give us something, that means that they're Russian bots. So does that mean that the Tea Party are a bunch of Russian bots? And does that mean that the Democrats and Republicans are Russian bots, and that the Hispanic vote are Russian bots, and the gay vote are Russian bots, and the immigrants are Russian bots? No. Joy Reid, as part of the white media's black flunky group, she happens to be part of the mouthpiece for official white power. And this is the message that they want being put out there. And this Shireen Mitchell woman, of course, she's stumbling and bumbling over her words. Of course, she's sitting here saying exactly what it is, the lie that she wants to put out there. This is what you call the incompetent operative class for white supremacy. Joy Reid, of course, you better believe when you start asking questions about immigrant hostility towards the black community in this country, you better believe Joy Reid's looking at that and going, we got to change that conversation. Yeah, what they're finally admitting to is, and this is one thing that I've been trying to get across to the family for the longest time, the white media is not going to be holding up a sign as soon as they get hit by us and say, oh, that hurt us. You guys are hurting us. Of course not. As far as they're concerned, they think that they're maintaining their position by denying all of that. So instead, this is what happens. Now that we've shown that we can actually run a candidate out of a presidential race, that the white media could not save her, and that Joy Reid could not preserve her. We've shown that we got more stroke than they do. Now what they're doing is they're trying to set the stage for what they hope is going to be deplatforming, because that's where this is all going. The idea here is to say these guys are Russian bots too. If you hear anybody talking about tangibles, if you hear anybody saying that the Democrats won't get our vote unless they give us something, those are Russian bots. That's what this is about. Joy Reid is scared. She should be. White power did not put this black flunky bedwench in her job just so that they can pay her to slam her gums. They put her there specifically so that she can be the black face to mislead black people. White power put her there specifically for the purpose of getting us to obey the left arm of white supremacy. But I couldn't have put it any more starkly myself. You see what she just said. This is what Joy Reid does. So for all you dumb Negroes out there who think that, well, Joy Reid says some things that is all right. Do you agree with this? Oh, but by the way, on a side note, you saw the graphic that they put up, didn't you? You saw the graphic that they put up where they wanted to make it crystal clear. Joy Reid, this is her little lame-brained, half-assed attempt to try to see if she can define the black media, because that's what this is really about. Joy Reid has just seen that she does not have any stroke with the black community like she liked to pretend that she did. Oh, these white folks gave me a TV show. Yeah, they can give you a platform, but what they cannot give you is legitimacy. She saw what we did to Roly-Poly Martin. She saw what we did to Kamala Harris and how she was helpless to stop it. The white media is not used to this. As far as they're concerned, we've got the most reach. We've got the media megaphone, and that means when we speak, something's supposed to happen. And if we say that you niggers over here don't exist, if we ignore you guys, then that means you don't exist. As I told you, reality is whatever refuses to go away when you close your eyes. They closed their eyes to the reality of the black media, but we didn't go away. Kamala Harris went away. Roly-Poly went away. And we're going to start leaning on Joy Reid now. She's going to vanish next. Joy Reid's fighting for her survival right now, because she saw what happened to Melissa Harris Lacewell Round the World in 80 Days, von Stubenberg, Harris Perry, when MSNBC drove her out. You might as well put her face on the side of a milk carton. Ain't nobody seen her. Roly-poly Martin, CNN cast him out. That was the end of him. And for allegedly homophobic comments. Joy Reid knows that they were putting her on notice. We got your freaking pink slip made out, so you better be real careful because this is the end of the line for you. You better kiss our pale behinds extra sweet. And Joy Reid's response to that is, would you like me to kiss your behinds with or without sugar and salt? So yeah, she's scared. She should be. White power specifically wants her to prove that she can mislead us, and what she's showing is she can't. Oh, there are voices who black people are listening to, but it ain't Joy Reid. And before I go any farther, there is something else that I feel compelled to mention. You see the list, this little graphic that they put up where they gave the list of the individuals and organizations and the types of buzzwords and watchwords that are supposed to be indicative of Russian bots. Do you notice how they have tangibles and foundational black Americans up there? That's important because some of you Negroes out there, you seem to think that something is important only if the white media mentions it. And some Negroes say, we here, because the New York Times gave them an article mentioned. Well, getting the white media to mention you, that's a fairly straightforward process. You can get a couple of mentions from the white media. That doesn't mean anything. But I know there's some Negroes out there, you fell on board the bandwagon being put on by Byron Allen's spokespeople, and your hearts went pitter-pat because you thought the white media was giving them some attention. This just goes to show you that in only probably about in the equivalent of about, say, 6 months or so, Tariq Nasheed, who was the one who coined the term foundational black Americans. Notice how it didn't take him any 3 or 4 years. He wasn't banging the drum since 2016 like Byron Allen's 2 spokespeople have been doing and not getting any attention until Tariq mentioned their hashtag. Tariq comes up with one. What a surprise. A few months later, the white media is sitting here saying this is a threat. So that lets you know who's relevant and who ain't. Just saying. So for all you Negroes out there who, as far as you're concerned, you fall in lockstep with something to the extent that the white media mentions it, it has legitimacy or it has cachet in your minds to the extent that the white media recognizes it. Okay, well now the white media is officially putting foundational black Americans up there. And they're also putting tangibles, something that you've never heard Byron Allen's 2 spokespeople mention before. You haven't heard them. It was the black media who put that on. Tangibles came from this side of the aisle, not the Byron Allen wing of the chattering class. But you also notice how they decided they were going to lump us in. They would try to lump in what it is that we're doing with clowns like Blexit and Black Voices for Trump. This is just more disinformation. This is the white media carrying out a disinformation campaign. Same way they tried to say, these people talking about reparations, these guys they're part of the alt-right. They're part of the alt-right. They want you to vote Republican. They're part of the alt-right. They're throwing stuff against the wall to see if anything sticks. That's what happens when you get desperate. It's just a matter of just make noise. Just make noise. Start banging your head against the wall. Start kicking and stomping, yelling and screaming. Throw out words. Put up some white noise. Just say something. We got to make some noise here. We got to try to find a way to distract people. We got to do something. Hopefully something will stick. That's what's going on right now. Joy Reid feels under threat. As well she should. Joy Reid has been lying for many years. When we start pointing out that there have been certain immigrants who have been hostile toward the black community, especially a number of these black immigrants, Joy Reid's looking and going, man, they're talking about me. Yes, mentioning you by name, Joy. And you saw what happened to Roly-Poly Martin, and you also should understand the same thing can happen to you. And your paymasters at MSNBC, they'll only keep you around to the extent that they think that you're useful to mislead the black community. Your pathetic attempts to try to gin up some gender war between black men and black women, you think you're going to recreate what happened in the 60s. You're going to make some sort of fracture in the black community along the lines of gender. And you're sitting here thinking that if you just do enough you go girls, the black women will say, yeah, who needs tangibles? Who needs any of that stuff? These good white folks, why they got their spokes chump. Joy Reid saying, you go girl. Oh, we want some more attention from her. You have no esteem in the black community, Joy. But then again, you already know that. And you also know that you're skating on thin ice. See, Roly-Poly Martin ain't the only one who gets out there buck dancing. Joy Reid, she's been tap dancing on thin ice for Massa. But she understands that Massa's looking and going, you know, Joy, we thought that you were supposed to have some influence with these niggers, and, yeah, they ain't even listening to you, and, well, you know, Joy, your ratings ain't really been that great. Fox has been kicking our butts in the ratings on weekends. We're starting to think, you know, maybe a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman would fit in better on the weekends, you know. Joy Reid knows exactly what's going down. She understands that as long as the black media is out here banging this drum and calling out the fakers, frauds, fools, and phonies, as long as we are illuminating who it is who's been standing against us, when we make it all the same vulnerabilities that Kamala Harris has, Joy Reid has as well. The same vulnerabilities that Roly-Poly Martin has, Joy Reid has as well. So of course she's going to do this. This is desperation. This is fear on her part. She is acknowledging what we've been telling you all along. They hear us and they fear us. But what they're thinking is, we're going to muddy the waters by lumping them in with all these other clowns. Front organizations for the right. Front organizations for self-interested fools like Byron Allen. We're just going to go ahead and lump them all in together, and hopefully the truth will be lost in the shuffle. We'll just lump them in all together. What she doesn't understand is the black media is not relying on Joy Reid to get time on her show to argue with her. And, oh, you got to tell the truth, Joy. No, we're going directly to the people. Joy Reid is white noise. I was watching an interview by Frontline with Steve Bannon, and it was called Zero Tolerance. And one of the things that happened was Steve Bannon, when he took over Breitbart, one of the things that happened was he wouldn't let his people go on Fox News. And that was deliberate, because one of the things that Steve Bannon pointed out was that a number of the other right-wing mouthpieces on the internet, these guys basically didn't exist without Fox News. And what they did was, by being so heavily reliant on Fox News and constantly making chummy with Roger Ailes, they made it where Roger Ailes was in charge. They basically became subsidiaries of Fox News, because the second that Roger Ailes says, I'm not giving you any more time, they go away. And Steve Bannon was like, I didn't want that to happen to Breitbart. I wanted to build our power base on our own, build our platform on our own, and that way nobody would be able to do anything against us. And then what happened was, when Megyn Kelly called herself jumping sharp with Donald Trump, first thing Steve Bannon said was he had two of his most vicious spokes liars over there on Breitbart, have them go at Megyn Kelly morning, noon, and night. Every day there were at least a couple of things that they were putting out on her, a couple of days, every day, a couple of those stories every day. And finally, Roger Ailes was forced to reach out to Steve Bannon. And as Bannon told it, Roger Ailes was saying, you got to let up on Joy Reid, why she's upset. She's getting these threats and she's crying, and you guys are just hammering her relentlessly. And Steve Bannon said, hell no, we're not letting up on her. And I don't depend on you for endorsements. I don't depend on you for advertising revenue. And we don't have to go on your show. So that being the case, you have no influence with us. You have no leverage. She opened her big mouth and now she's reaping the whirlwind. That's how Steve Bannon dealt with things, precisely because he built his power base on his own. See, these Negroes who are out here bragging about getting the white media to notice them. Oh, we got to write up in the New York Times. Yeah, as if you're the first ones to ever be mentioned by them. These are people who are chasing white media attention. They don't understand, and the people who are following them do not understand what kind of a sand trap you've let yourself fall into, what kind of quicksand you're standing in. And what that basically means is you're going to become a subsidiary of the white media. You give them veto power. They get to have a vote over how far you can go, because you have attached your own visibility directly to the white media. They decide not to show you, your visibility gets cut in half. That's the way it works. But this right here tells you exactly where MSNBC stands. They just flat out came out and said it. You hear anybody talking about tangibles? They're Russian bots. Man, this is straight up COINTELPRO. J. Edgar Hoover couldn't have put it any better. And this is supposed to be what qualifies as the left-leaning media. So what does that tell you about these good white liberals who have been talking about how they're so sympathetic to black people and how they are just so eager for diversity, and as far as they're concerned, black people's interests matter to them? What does that tell you about them? They only care about black people to the extent that they can use us. And here we are saying our interests are getting our tangibles. Reparations are part of tangibles. Reparations are not tangibles in their entirety. Even if slavery had never happened, the fact that we're here, the fact that we are citizens of this country would entitle us to reparations, because that's what every society is about. It's a group of people getting together and allegedly, supposedly, ostensibly trying to build the best lives that they can. Well, what that means is everybody should just be able to take up a gun and we're going to fight for the bounty of the land, right? No, well, we're going to have a society where we try to be civilized about it. Yeah, but the problem happens to be white supremacy's already decided black folks are not supposed to get anything. And Joy Reid has shown that she has total allegiance to white supremacy. I was doing the video essay about that She the People scam and that Black Pack scam as well. These scamsters, you can put this, whoever this crazy broad is, this Shireen woman, you can put her in the exact same category. You can tell that this is the strategy of the white media, that they're going to try to fracture the black community along the lines of gender. That's the reason why you keep seeing all these black women who are heads of these sock puppet organizations for white supremacy. That's the idea. They think the black women are a bunch of simpletons. They think black women are a bunch of fools. All they got to do is get a black woman to get out there, get a Kamala Harris to get out there. You go, girl, give a couple of sister girls, and the black women will say, yeah, we don't need tangibles. What we need is another pat on the head from the white media. That's what we need, but that's not happening. The sisters are staying on code because the brothers are making sure of that, because what's happening is we're pushing this issue and the black women are backing it because they understand they're going to get something out of this. And they understand that they're not going to get anything from what white supremacy is offering. Joy Reid is standing here empty-handed and telling you that you should obey her. She ain't giving nothing except for her big mouth. And she tells you that merely the fact that you're saying that in order for me to vote, I have to get something. Otherwise, what the hell are you voting for? Well, you're not supposed to get anything. You're supposed to just vote. What contempt. What disdain. What absolute disrespect. Because you would never see either Joy Reid or that Shireen heifer form their mouths to say that gay people are Russian bots under any circumstances. Notice how they never say that. They never say, oh, there's these people out here talking about reparations for homosexuals due to alleged discrimination against gay marriage back in the 70s and 80s and 60s or whatever. Anyone talking about reparations for homophobic discrimination, these people are Russian bots. If you hear anyone saying that gay people and LGBT people won't vote unless they're getting something, they're Russian bots. They would never say that. They would never say that immigrant anything are Russian bots. But you got black folks here, the black people who built this country. And here they are trying to drag that saw out. Joy Reid knows that this ain't no Russian bots. Hell, she's been getting knocked on day and night by these people online. So she knows that these people are real, but the problem happens to be she also understands that her longevity, her career is at stake. Her ability to continue to get crumbs from massa is at stake. She understands that the exact same forces of black empowerment that blasted Roly-Poly Martin into oblivion and swept Kamala Harris out of the presidential sweepstakes are the exact same forces that are amassing against her now. And that's what's going to happen again. The same way that a little over 2 years ago I began the process of beating a steady drum against Kamala Harris, well, a new drum beat's going to begin, this one against Joy Reid. Joy Reid should not be able to be running her mouth and telling these blatant lies, and then it's just a matter of, well, I guess that's just par for the course. No. People who lie about us, people who decide that they are going to fight against our interests, they're going to continue doing it as long as they figure that it's a victimless crime. They can do it for free, and, well, we're not going to say anything, and they can just go to work the next day, and they can yuck it up with their white liberal pals, and, yeah, we just totally slandered and lied about these guys. And no, Joy, you have tipped your hand. You have shown that you have heard every word that we've said, that you're terrified of what we're doing. You've also made it clear that your Democratic Party bosses have been leaning on you and telling you, God dang it, Joy, We didn't pluck you out of the Congo or whatever jungle we found your raggedy behind in. We didn't do all that just so that you could screw the pooch on this. You need to show us that you can control these niggers. And if you can't, then we'll get a white woman who will. Yeah, Joy Reid's feeling the pressure because her job is not to misreport the news. Her job is to prove that she can lead black people around by the nose. I've been telling you for the longest time, their mission is to get us off of tangibles. How do we get black folks off of tangibles? Well, we'll talk about Byron Allen and his mindless Supreme Court case. We'll talk about that. Don't talk about reparations. We're not going to talk about reparations anymore. We're going to worry about Byron Allen. Or what we're going to do is we're going to worry about Trump being impeached. Or we're going to worry about illegal aliens in migrant camps on the border. We're going to worry about that. Boy, what about reparations? What about dismantling the criminal injustice system? What about making sure that black people are no longer the perpetual punching bags of these immigrant groups? Well, Joy Reid's looking and going, well, hell, I'm one of those immigrant groups beating you guys up, so why the hell would I want to stop that? Yeah, Joy Reid is showing exactly where she's always stood. This is the reason why we got to keep doing this, as we keep putting pressure on these bastards. As we begin turning up the heat, they're going to put aside any pretense. They're going to put aside any and all pretense that A, they were ever not on the side of white supremacy, and B, that they didn't know who we were. They're going to have to become bolder about it. I told you about this. As we turn up the heat, they're going to come at us directly, and now they are. This is not a shot across the bow. This is a salvo across the bow. And Joy Reid, she's calling herself breaking the ice. Now that she has specifically put names on it, now that she has specifically named who it is that she's taking aim at, and she's specifically saying we need to declare tangibles for black people, for the former slaves, we need to declare tangibles to be completely and thoroughly illegitimate. And what about reparations? Well, reparations is nothing more than Russian bots. It's Russian disinformation. That's all reparations is. It's just disinformation. Great. Does that go for Ta-Nehisi Coates? So Ta-Nehisi Coates is a Russian agent, right? Because it was earlier this year when he and Danny Glover and Julianne Malveaux and some other clown, they were sitting there talking about reparations. Oh, except they weren't talking about reparations. They were talking around reparations. We're the ones actually talking about it. So go ahead and take a look at this graphic here. This is what Joy Reid is doing. I mean, this is right out of Joseph Goebbels' playbook. You take a group of people who you've targeted for extermination and then just start a steady drumbeat of lies against them. Say all sorts of things that they never said, and make sure that you lump them in with being just the dregs of society, the lowest of the low. There ain't a damn thing that anybody talking about tangibles, anybody identifying themselves as foundational black Americans have ever said that would ever be construed as being in the same breath as black voices for Trump or walk away or Blexit. You ain't never heard anybody saying black folks need to vote for Trump. You ain't never heard anybody say that. So what does that tell you? You got these individuals and a couple of folks who, one of which you can see on this screen, who are nothing more than clumsy fronts for the Democratic Party. They are nothing more than a thinly veiled Democratic Party black outreach program. The first video that I posted on this channel was about Ronald Reagan and his little racist remarks that he was making with Richard Nixon back in the 70s. But one of the things I pointed out was that when Ronald Reagan went on television and conveniently left out his racist remarks, he was talking about the UN deciding that Taiwan was no longer going to be part of the, was no longer going to be recognized as an official nation, and that China would be. What happened was Ronald Reagan was saying that the U.S. needed to withdraw from voting in the UN as a form of delegitimizing it, and said that we'll still be doing things as far as influencing the world and influencing international politics. But as far as showing that we are part of the UN goes, it's time to let them know that by withdrawing from them, you're basically saying you guys are illegitimate and we are not bound by anything that you say or do. What he was saying was just plain common sense. If you got an organization that is supposed to be operating in your interest, but that organization does not do anything that you tell them to do, then one of the most hostile things you can do is to let them know, we'll walk away on your behinds. In fact, we're turning our backs on you. That means that you are declaring yourself their enemy. And people trying to tell you vote down ballot, it makes no more sense to vote down ballot for the dog catcher than it would to vote at the top of the ballot for Elizabeth Warren or Bernie the bigot. If they're not offering you tangibles as the mayor or as a city council representative, then what the hell sense does it make to vote for them? You're not supposed to be voting down ballot. You're supposed to be voting for tangibles, voting for your interest. Whomever comes to you and takes the pledge to your tangibles, that's who gets your vote. You're not supposed to be trying to find an excuse to vote for these idiots. They're supposed to be finding a way to induce you, to incentivize you to vote for them. And that means tangibles. There's only one thing that incentivizes my vote: tangibles. No tangibles, no vote. I ain't voting down ballot, up ballot, side ballot. I'm voting no ballot. Tangibles is what matters. See, if you're trying to fool black people into getting back on the electoral treadmill to nowhere, there are many ways to skin that particular cat. You can go ahead and declare that anybody telling you don't vote without a solid pledge for tangibles, well, they're Russian bots. Or what you can tell people is, okay, don't vote for these people saying that they want to be president or something, but go ahead and vote for the city councilman and vote for the state representative. And that way, when these idiots run for Congress and run for the Senate and run for the presidency in a few years, that way you'll be emotionally attached to them. And next thing you know, you're voting for people at the top of the ballot and things go on as they always have. No, we're telling you to disengage from the treadmill and to engage with your tangibles. Every election is a business transaction. Quid pro quo, something for something. You want my vote? I got to know what you're going to put on in my pocket. You got to put something on this. Oh, well, I want you to know that I've brought some soaring rhetoric, and I've also brought some lofty speeches, and I've also brought some insincere praise for Dr. King. Well, in that case, then I ain't going to hang around to hear none of that crap, and you don't have to worry about me voting for you because I wouldn't to save your life. This is what's happening, folks. This is a good sign that Joy Reid has done this. This is an excellent sign. Because what it means is we hurt them and hurt them badly. Joy Reid is a mouthpiece for white supremacy, but she's now a wounded mouthpiece. Do you think that she did something this ultra, something this blatant, simply because? No, it's because she's feeling the heat. She's been told by her white paymasters, Joy, they just ran Kamala Harris out and broke Kamala Harris's back. And Joy, how come you couldn't stop this? The black community's listening to these guys. Well, what the hell we need you for then, Joy? And Joy's like, they're Russian bots. Anyone who you hear talking about tangibles, it makes her look like a freaking fool to be putting this on there. And of course, that's the entire point. When the white paymasters show you that they're unhappy with you, you gotta bow and scrape extra low. But make no mistake, this is the beginning of what's going to be a very dirty, very underhanded, in other words, typically white supremacist media offensive against us. Joy Reid is simply here to break the ice on this one. We successfully defined their would-be stalking horse, Kamala Harris. We successfully defined a number of the old, dead black media. We have successfully defined the bastards. And Joy Reid, I guess she figures this is her half-baked idea of a preemptive strike. She's only late by about 10 years, but, you know, when you're working for the white media, that means you're pulling up the rear. But Joy Reid figures to herself that what she thinks is going to happen is if she can try to get something going where hopefully this can be used as a pretext to deplatforming the new voices of black media. And then hopefully come primary season, well, we won't be a factor in electoral politics. That's what she's hoping for. Because she's seen now where this goes if she cannot stop it, and indeed she cannot. The black media's power base isn't Comcast. And it isn't white corporate sponsorship. It's the black grassroots, the same grassroots who Joy Reid desperately wishes she could influence, who this Shireen heifer desperately wishes she could influence. And by the way, I'm willing to bet you, without much effort at all, if you look at that organization, Violence Against Women, she ain't even got this Shireen woman doesn't even have the decency to name her organization Stop Violence Against Black Women. She'll sit there and talk about black women when she's in front of Joy Reid. But her organization is not anything having to do with black women. It's just Stop Online Violence Against Women in general. Which of course includes white women. And I'm sure that it also includes transgender women. Because I mean, that's who she's there to represent. She's not there to represent black women. She's there to represent everyone except for black women. Family, this is what the world's coming down the pike now. This lets you know that we are effective, and we did it without having to beg for white media attention. We did it without having to get on our hands and knees for anyone. We did it by kicking these scumbags in the behind. So the black bootlicks who have been privileged and who have been getting some tangible benefits from white supremacy, these bootlicks, bedwenches, and fools like Joy Reid, they're understanding now that the black media is calling out the people who have been collaborating with white supremacy and calling them out specifically on the terms in which they've been collaborating. We're being specific. We're being specific, and we are, as I've been saying for over a decade now, taking a hard-nosed approach to our power. And as Jason Black has always put it, power is not inclusive, power is exclusive. Joy Reid saw how the black media used its power to exclude Roly-Poly Martin, used its power to exclude Kamala Harris, and now she's looking and going, man, it's only a matter of time before they get around to me. You're right, Joy, only a matter of time. Not a matter of if, just a matter of when. So family, let's make sure that we keep Joy Reid in our thoughts as we prepare to move forward to press this black agenda on the throat of white supremacy. As we continue the war to put white supremacy into the ash heap of history, buried, forgotten, never to be spoken of ever again, let's make sure we remember the Negroes who were collaborating with white supremacy. Joy Reid may think to herself that she did something slick. Nope, this don't move the needle. And it doesn't scare anyone. My reaction to this was not anger at all. I know that these idiots have been well aware of what we've been doing. We've been telling you for the longest time. That's the thing. You need to be listening to us. Because a lot of you out there, I guess you think that it's okay to be listening to just anyone who claims to be black empowerment, anyone who claims to be pro-black, anyone who says some black power, whatever. And you need to be more judicious with who you listen to. You know who the primary voices of the black media are. And you know that you can't go wrong by listening to us. So family, take a bow. What Joy Reid did this weekend, this is an admission that the black media has drawn blood from these black bootlicks. It's an admission that they're scared. They can feel the walls closing in. They understand who the momentum is with. This is your confirmation that tangibles, and I use that word more than any other, this is your confirmation that black folks talking about tangibles, this is a threat, a real, credible, confirmable threat to white supremacy. How do you know that? They put that on there. Look what the woman said. Anyone who's saying that if we're not going to vote for you unless we get something, well, hell, in that case, then you might as well remove everybody, white, black, or otherwise, from being able to vote. Everybody's a Russian bot under those circumstances. Yeah, except it's how they always like to use very generalized terms that seem as if they just apply to no one in particular when it's actually code for black. That's what's happening here. It's okay for other people to say tangibles, but it's just not okay for black people to say tangibles. See, it's okay for white people to be able to get government contracts and to be able to live off of taxpayer dollars. But when black people say the same thing, well, that ain't all right. See, it's okay for white teenagers to either get a record deal or to be able to get some sort of multi-million-dollar contract. But you let some black kid from the inner city get a contract like LeBron James did when he was not even out of high school yet, and all of a sudden young people shouldn't have that kind of money. Yeah, that's how you know we're on the right track and we're scaring all the right people. Joy Reid, I know that you listen to voices like mine. In fact, I have no doubt that you're going to be listening to this video essay while you cower in your studio behind your desk, hoping that your white paymasters are not seeing that you never had any influence or stroke with the black community, as you hope and pray to yourself that you make it past this election cycle. Just remember, when the day comes, and it's coming sooner than you think, that you get your pink slip and that you have, after enduring months of the black media coming down on you like a month of Sundays, when you actually have to see that the white media throws you out because you've been trying to figure out how to keep them from tossing your butt on the curb, which you know is coming, but you're just hoping if I can hang in there a little bit longer, get another book deal. When you get cut off and you realize, like Kamala Harris before you, that there was nothing you could do to stop it, I know that you'll be grinding your teeth like roly-poly. Maybe you'll do like him and you'll put up a failed YouTube channel. And just like him, you'll be sitting there wondering why it is that you got 300,000 subscribers and only like 200 people on average who watch your videos. Yeah, the best subscribers money can buy. As you see your would-be career circling the toilet bowl on its way to oblivion, you just remember the same foundational black Americans, the same descendants of American slaves that you had thought to yourself that you were going to set up to be run off the internet, or you're going to set us up to be gotten rid of. We're the ones who are going to resign you to the ash heap of history. You're going to be going back to some anonymous blog that nobody gave a damn about. You'll be joining roly-poly in that broom closet. And the same way that you've been telling lies about us and telling lies about the black agenda, the same way you've been lying about the black media, you'll be lying to yourself that it must have been the Russians, but the truth is you've admitted you know who it is. Trying to save face will not save what's left of your career. We are the ones who are going to write your page in history, and it won't even be a page, it's just going to be a footnote. There was this Guyanese immigrant named Joy Reid who figured that she was better than the sons and daughters of American slavery. She would tell lies all the time for her white paymasters. She sold all manner of falsehoods and disinformation meant to deceive black people and to lie about us and who we are, what we've done, and what we're owed. She thought she was part of the in crowd because she got a pat on the head and white society gave her a check. But in the end, her future was not in her own hands. It wasn't even in the hands of her white paymasters. Her future was in the hands of the very former slaves who she had shown disrespect to. And they made her pay for that disrespect with interest.